if you do something wrong, you can go to prison for this. So, you're too much of a good-looking man to go to prison. I'd imagine you wouldn't do too well in prison. So we want to keep you out of there. It's hard to estimate exactly what this would cost, but you could easily put $50,000 to $100,000 into this exterior property, the facade and stuff like that, the driveway and things like that. You could do that in a blink of an eye, easily. My next guest is an investor who is early on his journey. I'm currently helping him expand his knowledge and skills in the world of investing. It's Jordan Bailey. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, buddy. You are very, very welcome. So today we're actually going to be diving into many different topics about investing in real estate that Jordan and I would usually discuss during our weekly calls, but I've decided to record this session to see if we can share some of this value and insights with all of you as well. So, all right. So, Jordan, first question, mate. What do you have for me?
Cool. So I spent the last couple of days looking at apartment blocks in Melbourne and rural Victoria, and I remember thinking, I need to start trying to find these creative finance deals on residential properties because low risk, low reward, all that sort of stuff. And I remember you saying to me, and you kind of gave me this inspiration when you did your awesome storage shed deals, is that if you're gonna put all the time and effort into putting deals together, it might as well be life changing. And so I thought, well, why not have a look? At least have a look. Starting to have a look at investment blocks, apartment units. So I've looked at like 20, and we're probably not going to go through 20, but I want to like show you a couple and just to like show you my thinking and to see if you can scrutinize my thinking and provide some value for me, and to see if some of these investments are worth digging into or not.
So you found 20 apartment blocks in and around Melbourne area that
Yes.
are all on one title. They're not strata titled.
A small percentage are strata titled.
And so
Yeah.
what was the thinking? Why did you go straight to apartment blocks? That's what I first want to understand.
Okay, so I started with residential, and I was looking in a suburb that had high growth, and I know Victoria is not the flavor of the month at the moment for growth, but I was kind of door knocking and speaking to people that live in their own home or have like rentals, and I was talking with some people that might have been interested in joint ventures and stuff like that, and I was just doing the numbers, and the margins were so small that the risk was high that I could chew up all that margin by making one mistake. And I thought, well, if I can provide a big enough deal to investors where the margin is so great that I can afford to make a mistake, or I can take it to investors and be part of this deal, then why not go straight to apartment blocks? What I also like about apartment blocks is that, similar to your self-storage facilities, is that you have multiple sources of income coming at the same time. So I was listening to the ABCs of Real Estate Investing by Ken McElroy, and I've listened to that about, I don't know, 20 times now. And his first thing that comes out of it, the first thing that he says is, you don't need the finance, you need the deal. And that just got me thinking.
Okay. Awesome. So in terms of residential apartments in Australia, I just trying to understand why your first instance would be to that. I know you'll be listening to, so you listen. I got you onto Robert Kiyosaki, and I recommended that you listen to ABCs of Real Estate Investing. They are American, it's all American content. So the way that they treat it in multifamily is a little bit different than we would in Australia. The thing is with buying into residential apartment blocks right now, and anytime, it's the maintenance costs on these properties are the responsibility of the investor, right? So in terms of like cash flow and things like that, if you're looking at buying an investment, a larger investment, and it's also a lot more difficult to actually calculate how much value you could create by taking a rundown apartment block and renovating it. So it's not a simple calculation like it is with commercial property, because you are still working within the residential space, and you're going to be working on comparables of what is in the market. And then I'm assuming these are high rise apartment blocks. Is that right?
I think no taller than two levels, really, 2 stories. Yep.
Two
So between
stories.
yeah,
Yeah.
between 8 and 16 unit blocks.
Okay. So, you're looking at potentially what? Chopping these up, renovating, chopping them up, and then possibly strata titling them and selling them off? Or is this more of a long term cash flow play?
So some of those I've looked at potentially strata titling, and others look like they have room for subdivision or development at the back. So the property itself, and others I was thinking maybe a cash flow play by renovation. Yeah, so light renovations or something of that nature, and increasing the cash flow from there. Another thought I had was renting out the rooms as opposed to just the units. So if they're 2 bedroom units, can I just rent out the rooms and increase the cash flow that way? So those are some of the things I've been thinking.
And so the way that you would structure this deal, is this what you're thinking was you want to put together a small joint venture or a small syndication where you would have investors put in the money and then you were to run the deal. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. And I would like to manage the property as well, which would hopefully keep the expenses a bit lower and give me exposure in managing property.
Yeah, okay. So the couple of things here that's going to be probably your constraint, and this is everyone's constraint at the start, is that it actually is quite difficult to get people to invest with you if you don't have a track record. That's probably one of the first things that's going to be a little bit more difficult. The deal will have to be absolutely like, you know, sure thing, guaranteed, rock star deal, which is totally fine. You could definitely find that. You could definitely, I believe you definitely could pull this off. But that's one of the first things that the first barriers or the first struggles that you would have is getting people to believe in you, because people don't always they're not always investing in the actual deal as well. So a lot of investors that I've had, they're investing in me, Andrew Bean, because they've listened to my content, they know me, they like me, they understand that I know the game, um, and they'll back me because I believe in the deal, right? So that's probably one of the first things that you might come up with that's a little bit more difficult. The second thing is that renovating older apartments, it can be very, very expensive. So you've also got to remember, when you're renovating and upgrading an apartment, the tenant can't be there as
Mm.
well. So you're going to have to evict them or ask them to move out for a short period of time so you can renovate the apartment to then get someone back in to then charge a higher rent, right? So there's a bit of more risk there. So, not impossible, but these are one of the risks and the factors that you would have to like factor into your feasibility on doing this. Is there going to be any income coming in while I'm running this renovation or while I'm doing this uplift, right? So that means that you potentially could renovate each unit when it went vacant, if it did go vacant. But then who knows when it would be? So you kind of have to have a timeline set out, and you'd have to look at the leases that are currently on the property to understand when would be the best time to actually renovate these units if you were going to renovate. One of the next things that I would suggest is usually a big problem when it comes to an apartment block turnaround, is that strata titling them, especially old unit blocks, because they weren't designed with up to code, up to like recent the property codes. It can be very, very, very expensive to refurbish them and bring them up to standards with fire safety, fireproofing all the walls, and things like that to make it actually strata title to be able to piece this off. Because ultimately, the most value you're going to make is if you're refurbishing, uplifting, and taking each unit to be a better, nicer like property, and then strata titling it or having it already strata titled and then selling it off. And that's probably going to be your highest, way you could make money. Like holding it and stuff is going to be more difficult, because then you obviously, you're when you hold long-term assets with investors, you're basically marrying that person and you're a partner with them in it for a long time. And then usually with a syndication or a JV, there needs to be clear rules and ways you can exit. So people might want to do a quick turnaround kind of upgrade of a apartment building, and that might be 12 to 24 months, whatever it is. But people might not want you to tie up money with you for 5 years, right? And to like be able to uplift and refurbish and make a property like this and run it, if you're looking at the holding strategy, you'd be looking at possibly like holding it for a long time. So like at least 5 to 7 years, which that also might deter investors. Not impossible, but these are just some of the roadblocks that you'll come up in putting a deal like this together. By all means, not an impossible deal to do, but this is just some of the things that you would think of. So when you're putting together a JV, and when it's usually like a development, and this would be classed as almost like a refurbished development type deal, there usually has to be a clear end in sight. So it would be after 2 years, after 3 years, we will sell this asset, or we will sell each individual apartment, right? So do you understand like that there's you'll be running a project, and I know you actually are a project manager, so this would probably be very, very right up your alley, but these are things that you need to factor in to the overall cash flow, because are you going to, like, you have to think about, are you going to want to pay investors monthly? Is it going to be an annualized return? What is their percentage of uplift compared to what money they put in? It is probably like, it's quite complicated. It's not like just a simple, oh, this is pretty easy to do. It is complicated to do. And you also got to make sure you're doing it within the regulations of what's called the 2-20-12 rule. So that means that you can raise up to $2 million. You can do this every 12 months, and you can have a maximum of 20 investors involved. And if some of those investors are wholesale investors, then they don't count towards that 20 as well. So it's fairly complicated. And there are risks legally. If you do something wrong, you can go to prison for this. So, you're you're too much of a good-looking man to go to prison. I'd imagine you wouldn't do too well in prison. So we want to keep you out of there. We want to make sure that we are going about this and looking at it and being able to put it together under all of the rules and regulations. So it would definitely be a joint venture, which gives you a bit more wiggle room. But then, they can actually look at this and go, actually, no, this is a syndication. So it comes down to definitions, and also how it is perceived by the authorities and stuff like that, like ASIC.
Okay, cool.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So
And,
not impossible. But so what we're going to need to do is deal by deal, or we won't be able to do 20 deals. There's no way. But
pick a few.
what you would be looking at is you would need a renovation budget, right? So each apartment. So say there's an apartment and it's like 2 bedrooms. You need to understand how many of them you're actually going to be refurbishing. You need to understand what's involved in that. Is it a total gut where you're taking everything out, bathroom, kitchen, or is it just light renovations, carpet and paint? You probably want to do it as cheap as possible, obviously using good quality stuff, but you don't want to be spending heaps of money. Is there one property that we can kind of assess and we can have a look at, and then we can kind of like how I would run the numbers on that?
Okay, so this is a 16-bedroom block of units, and I was sending this to you now. And the agent said that they've just had approval for like student accommodation parking, which I don't know what that means. But if you can like turn this into student accommodation, because they're 2-bedroom apartments, can't you just rent out like room by room then? And couldn't you like increase the rent revenue, the annual rent by like 40%? Like I did real rough calculation. So this property, 16 a bed, 8 unit property, 4,125,000. Some rough calculations. What I did was, it's yielding at 5.1%. Like that's gross. So
Gross.
212. Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
212,160 a year,
Mhm.
which I think was $510 per unit. And so I'm just doing that real quick. So $510 per unit, but if I can get some student accommodation at $350 per bed at 16 beds, I'll do a quick 350 times 16 times 52. So that's 291,200. So that is a difference of like nearly 80,000
Yep.
increase of revenue, of gross revenue. And if I divide that, and I can't divide that by the cap rate, which I just learned from you, which is cool. Um,
Well,
but
you can divide this by the cap rate because that would be how this particular property would be valued because it's an apartment block of
yeah,
multiple units, more than four. So you actually could, and
right.
especially this is all on one title, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's different. So this is a different asset class,
Yeah,
and this is actually considered a commercial property, even though it's a residential apartment block, but it's all on one title. So you actually would be calculating this more on a cap rate and doing the income approach than you would
yeah,
like selling
perfect.
it. Like the difference was the last property we were looking at was a triplex that was split up into
Yeah,
individual houses. So there wouldn't be you wouldn't be looking at it as a cap rate approach. But with this one,
yep.
we can actually look at this as a cap rate approach because it's a cash flow property. Um,
So if okay, so if I
so
was to
on the
do
outset,
290,
I missed the numbers, so I'll have to ask you again.
yep,
But I'm just having a look through it. So on first in like just first appearance, the roof looks like it might need some work. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few leaks in there. The overall asset has been run down. It's been let go. There's also some paving, driveway issues. It's going to have to be fixed up. But
hmm,
it's a more rundown property, and it definitely could be made a lot nicer. So it's there's a lot of problems here, but these are pretty easy problems to fix. So that's good. Just takes a bit of work, which is what we want to find. We want to find problems that we can fix, and that's how you can make a lot of money. So the bar or the kitchens, they're pretty like bare bones. It's like literally like two cupboards and that's it. You know, there's absolutely no bench space here. So what would be the overall plan here? Are you looking at renovating these, taking out the kitchens and redoing them?
well, I think that would definitely be part of the plan. But if I like, could I just convert this to student accommodation and have a 212,000 revenue a year turn into 290, which at that cap rate turns into a $5.8 million property, which it currently is a $4.125 million property. So like,
So okay, let's just go through the numbers. So what are they
yeah,
asking for this? 4.25.
4.125,
Okay. Right, let's just
and it's
round it
yielding
up, mate. 4
212.
million.
Yep,
Yeah. So its current yield right now is 212,000.
yep,
Okay, the income, and that's gross, right?
yep,
So first of all, you need to understand what the actual expenses are, what the council rates are, what the water rates, land tax and stuff like that, what that would be. Then you would need to come
yep.
to a net figure, right? So we're going to be calculating um, the value from the net income, the net figure. So that's the first thing we need to figure out, right? So have you got the IM for this property?
No, no, I
Okay,
don't.
so that'd be the
And
first thing we need to have is the IM. And look, it actually
okay,
says an information memorandum is available for your detailed review. That'd be the first thing I'd be grabbing. And so this is 8 two-bedroom apartments. Is that right? That's what it says here.
correct.
Two bedders. All right. So just looking at it, why would you think that you could just rent this out as it is as student housing and get a higher return than you would just as it is normal rented out to normal people?
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but I saw looking at online student accommodations around 350 a room in that area, and so
And
I
what?
just really
Sorry, just stop you. Just
ignorantly I
stop
did.
jumping there, mate. So, sorry, mate.
Yeah,
What? And you said so it's 350, but for what type of property? It's got to be comparable and like for like. It can't be a beautiful, nice house is 350, and then you're going to try and get the same return for this, shitty two-bedroom apartment.
yeah, fair enough. I didn't look that deeply into that. No.
Okay, so first thing we need to do is before you make any assumptions, make sure that you're comparing like for like, which it very well
Cool.
it might be. It's but you need to that's rule number one is you can't make assumptions on prices that you can get if and they're giving you prices if you don't exactly know what type of accommodation that they're already like getting for that 350, right? And then we need to do basically what we did this the last time with the other property. We need to know
Yep.
exactly in the market
Cool. That.
how many of these types of properties are available, the units are available to rent, what they're charging for them in this state, what they're charging for them in renovated state, and what's the difference between that. And then we also need to understand what the people are buying two-bedroom apartments for in this particular location, and what that would be. So this is all on one title, right?
Yes, to my understanding, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, like right off the bat, I would be thinking that we are going to need to do renovate. We're going to gut every single apartment. If this is, and the thing is that if they're taking pictures and showing you this apartment, right? So this is the best apartment they have. If this whole
Yeah.
thing is
Yeah.
vacant, which it probably isn't, but this is the best one they've got, and like it's not it's not overly very appealing. Like the bathroom needs to be redone. You'd be looking at easy 20,000 in this bathroom, easy, maybe 25,000. Kitchen, you could do a really nice little kitchen here, with a kitchenette and stuff like that. You'd probably be looking at another 20, easy here. Maybe even more, depending on how elaborate you want it to go. Paint looks like it's been actually freshly painted, which is strange. So they might have painted it just for this photo. The carpet probably needs to be redone. That blue probably needs to be fixed up. Oh, it's actually there's been different carpet in it in the property. So one side is blue and one side is like more navy. Um, but then it's probably also the exterior. So you're looking at easy. Let's be conservative. I'd say 50,000, but let's be conservative and say $60,000 of renovations per unit, right? Straight up,
Yep.
right? So 60 times 8 is you need $480,000 of refurbishment costs just for the interior. That's not even like thinking about the exterior yet. So that's roadblock one. We don't have $480,000 to put into this. We've also need for a $4 million acquisition. You're going to need to put down at least 30% of this because this is more than 4 unit blocks. The lending on this, it's going to be a commercial loan, right? So
Yep.
the bank will look at this and go, hey, this is actually not a residential property, so we can't lend up to 90% or even 80%. It's actually classed as a commercial building, so a commercial loan. So you're probably only going to be able to get up to 70, maybe even only 60% LVR on this. So like being conservative, let's assume that we're getting the short end of the stick and we can only get up to 60%. So if we go 40 over 100 times 4 million, we're going to need 1.6 million just to get the deal done, right? Unless you can put this under an option, which is it could definitely work. If we're looking at creative finance, that's how we would do it. We put up a small option fee, maybe 100, maybe 50, obviously as low as possible. I'd keep it low at the start and then negotiate up. So might be 50, might be 100, could be even $150,000 to tie this property up for say 12 months while you refurbish it. And then you could say, look, I'm going to put in all these renovations and make this property a lot like better, worth a lot more. and then you're going to get it re-tenanted and you could sell it off at a higher rate. That's definitely what you could definitely do. That'd be more in line of doing this creatively with less money, but you still need 480k at the moment. Before I look even further, you still need 480k of cash to be able to do this, plus whatever the option fee is. So let's assume that the option fee is 150k, because he's and non-refundable as well. To tie this property up for probably 12 months, you're looking at non-refundable. So it's 150k you'd be liable for, and then also the 480. And then let's have a look at the outside. The outside there's not actually that big, the property. I don't know why this is all like there's a front garden or something, or like a front little like courtyard. What do they use it for? They wouldn't use anything. There wouldn't be anything there. They should have this opened up here. If you can see my cursor, and they should actually use it for parking.
Yeah, I think that's
Or
what
you
you'd do.
could put
Yeah.
in a garden there, or make it nicer, or make it like way more desirable, where someone would actually want to come out and sit out there. And I think it's in front of a sporting field, isn't it? Yeah. So like you could, it's just there. So I mean, who knows if they could see any kind of, there's a cricket ground there. You could make it desirable where it could be someone where the tenants could hang out at the front, have a barbecue, watch the ovals across the road or something like that. That's very underutilized, that space, Um, so that's something you could actually look at, creating more parking, because what will happen is if you do want to strata title this property, the council will probably request you to have more parking on site, and this is
Yeah.
underutilized. So you might be able to, that's a good spot to be able to put more parking in. What I would suggest is I mean, it's hard to estimate exactly what this would cost, but you could easily put $50,000 to $100,000 into this exterior, property, the facade and stuff like that, the driveway and things like that, in a blink. And you could do that in a blink of an eye, easily. So I'd be looking at, and that's conservatively, and that could be more. But like conservatively, I would look at $100,000 of expenses that you're going to have to bring this property up to a nice, a nicer type property that people are going to want to make it more desirable. People are going to want to live in. So right now we've got what, we've got 480. We've got the plus the 150k plus the 100k. So we're up to $730,000 of capex that you need, like purely just to run the project, and that's not even taking into account if you are, that's in an option fee kind of
Yeah.
deal, where you
Yeah.
haven't
Not
actually
purchasing
purchased the
costs and all
property
that.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not. I mean, it is a lot of money, but you're gonna have to get someone to pony up that kind of cash for you, um, which is probably going to be difficult. And then realistically now, so the property right now, if you were to actually do this project, you need to know what you could actually sell it for, you could flip it for. Um, so you'd have to figure out exactly what the price is of property in the area. So let's go back to the menu, and where is this? Let's go to buy, and we're in Caulfield North, and we're going to go search. We haven't even spoken about like what the cost would be to possibly strata tile this either. So is putting in like all the fire safety stuff and things like that. You might have to put in an extra stairwell. It's just, there's a lot of things that you need to factor in here to make this viable. So this is an apartment block, and they're 2 bedrooms, so two maximum, two bathroom would be one, car space would probably be one, and let's see what the value is. Okay, so there's 45 properties available, and oh wow, 1.6 million. That's crazy. Okay, it's like a luxury 2 bedroom apartment. See some. We need to, because this property that we're looking at, you're looking at the project, is more of a 70s style building. after you refurbish it would probably be look a lot nicer. But we need to make sure we're comparing apples with apples. So we need to find basically a refurbished 70s type block. This is more what it could be. Even that would be newer, or that actually could have been rendered. Don't know, but it's got a balcony and stuff. It's definitely newer. That might not be the best comparable. If I'm looking, okay, that's been renovated a bit. So that's this one right now is $599. The one previously was what, $660. Okay. So conservatively in the market right now, there, just from my very, very quick analysis, I'd suggest that with renovating the property, each apartment, you could probably expect, being conservative on the lower end, about probably selling each apartment for $500K. Would be something that I would think could be achievable in this market, just seeing what's available. There's nothing. There's one here for 480 to 520. What does that look like? Oh, okay, it's super high rise, and it's got amenities too. Yeah, so you might need to be more conservative than that. So I'd say, 470, 460 per unit would be like something that you could realistically say, yes, I could. That'd be the lowest value one in the market. Mine's nicer than all of these, and you could definitely achieve that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that would
So
put you under, I
that
think, if you
means that,
times.
yeah. So let's say it's like 470 a piece. So 470 times 8. That's 3.76 million. So we're nowhere near where we need to be. That's 3.7. You're buying it for 4. So they're really buying, like, they're selling it for full blown, market value, like a retail price. We need to
Yep.
be getting this wholesale price to be able to make any profit from it. So for you to make any money from it, you would need to be selling it for 4 million plus 480K plus 150K plus 100K of our exterior renovations, and then plus I put in a margin of error for unknowns as well. So plus another, $50,000 of unknown expenses. Just to break even, you need to sell this for 4.7 million. Just to break even, right?
Yeah.
So to make it even worthwhile, you'd at least have to have $1 million of profit possible, like in this project, to make it worthwhile for the risk involved. You know what I mean? At least.
Yep.
So that
You're right.
means you'd have to sell it for 5.7, right? Divided by 8. You'd have to sell every apartment for $712,000, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So that's if you're looking at it from a purchase and sell off point of view. If it was, let's look at it, the income approach, which is going to be more complicated. So we would need to figure out exactly how much the rent could be, and well, first we need to figure out exactly what the market cap rate would be for something like this. That's going to be way more difficult. I don't think we have time to
I found
actually do
agents
that.
don't know what the cap rate is either.
Well, you won't, because these types of assets don't get sold and traded quite frequently. So to understand exactly what the cap rate would be you wouldn't have that many comparables in the market.
Yep.
So let's just go to rent Caulfield. What would the rent be? Apartment, two bedroom, one bathroom, one car space. All right, so there's 31 properties to rent, and the highest value one is $1,030 a week. I still think $4 million is probably too much for this property to pay. They're looking at it like they'd be selling them off already for full blown retail price.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to find a rundown apartment what it would rent for. All of them look pretty nice, and I've just seen them. There's one for 560. That's nice. All right, this is that's way nicer. Everything's pretty nice in the market. Oh, this is more like it. It's still nicer. Way nicer. Okay, here we go. That actually is the building. That's the building.
Yep.
That's the one that you're looking at buying. So that's Unit 1 of 1/275 Balaclava Road, Caulfield North. There, it's listed for $500 a week, right? So if $500, 500 times 8 is $4,000 times 52. So it's right now they reckon that the full blown price of income should be $208,000, right? So even if that market cap rate was, it'd probably be about 5 or 6%. Yeah, it's even hard to figure that out because it's just not an asset that is traded a lot. 4, 6.
Well,
even
any apartment blocks that I've looked at in Melbourne have been around the 4% or less.
Yeah, right. Okay. So 208,000 divided by 0.04. I mean, they can ask, for a 4%, but it really comes down to the valuer, what they believe the cap rate should be. That's the unknown, right? So you could call. What I would do if you were thinking like that this probably was a deal that you wanted to keep on pursuing, I would call some valuers in the area and tell them about this asset and just go, what do you think it would trade for? What cap rate do you think it would trade for? And I would call every single one that would pick up my phone, like a phone call, and I would ask them the same question. And then you could kind of get a range of what they would think, and then you could get a better understanding. Okay. That's your real risk here, is that you may think it's a sharper cap rate or a better cap rate than it really is. Because I'd suggest that, a 4 cap for this is outrageous. The expenses on this property would be huge. There'd be a lot of cost, a lot of breakdowns, a lot of maintenance, and you're on the hook for that as the investor. With flipping this around to a commercial property, the tenant pays for all the maintenance, the tenant pays for all the outgoings. You can literally push all of the expenses and outgoings to the tenants. So it's like a much cleaner, easier understanding of what the net income is. If you got a leak in that roof, you might have to pay, $40,000-$60,000 to do the whole roof again. So there's a lot more risk here than I would be comfortable with. Especially this is much more of if you have a lot of money and you have a large amount of like capital to burn or to hold, and this could be something you want to hold for a long period of time, and you're more of an established investor, this could be something that you could look at. But for a first like large deal to do, there's just too much risk here. That I would suggest that you could actually, get yourself in really hot water, because you just need too much. It just requires too much capital to be able to run the project. That's the problem. It's capital intensive. Whereas with
Yeah, these scenarios
with a
you've
with a
mentioned and
commercial
just the
project.
numbers.
Yeah. Well, with a commercial project, it'd rely more on, you want to find an asset that's underperforming. Now, you've found an asset that's underperforming, but the cost to bring it up to where it needs to be is so outrageous and so much required, that it just doesn't seem feasible. With a commercial asset, you can do it without spending any money or spending way less capital. So it could literally be making the tenants pay more rent. And that's basically taking an asset that has month to month leases, renegotiating the lease with them, getting them on a 3, 5, even 7 year lease, and renegotiating a better rental price. And that's your value add. It's just so much
Mm.
easier and less capital intensive. Or you can find projects in commercial property that are way less capital intensive than this particular type of project. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, you've really opened my eyes as to all the different kind of things that could go wrong and the scenarios I haven't thought about. So yeah, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns here. So literally, you'd have to sell this property for at least 5.7 million to break even. Oh, sorry, it was yeah, I think no, it was 4.7 million to break even, and you'd have to be getting at least you'd have to be making realistically $5.7 million, sell it for 5.7 to make it even worthwhile to
Mm.
spend any more time on this deal running it. Um, and that profit could be, whittled away very quickly with a few unknown expenses coming up. So yeah, I think put this one in the bin, keep on looking, and
Yeah.
we'll come back to it at a later point, maybe in a different type of asset. And thanks so much for being on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it.